The planet Almaris glimmered in the distance, its atmosphere a swirl of vibrant blues and deep greens, under a sun that cast long shadows across the rugged landscape. The mission for Earth's soldiers was deceptively simple: to establish a presence on this uncharted planet, to build a forward base in the shadow of towering mountains, and hold their ground until reinforcements arrived. The Intergalactic Peace Corps assumed this would be a minor skirmish, at most the terrain itself so remote that any significant conflict seemed unlikely. Captain Darrow led the battalion with a quiet intensity that needed no embellishment. Known for his unwavering resolve, he had earned the respect of his team through countless missions in hostile territories. He sensed the tension in the air as his soldiers moved through the outpost, establishing defenses, setting up their perimeter, and exchanging glances that spoke of readiness. Yet something else lingered beneath the surface, a sense that this mission would test them in ways they had yet to understand. As the sun began its descent, casting the landscape in dim golden light, the ground beneath them started to tremble. At first it was a subtle vibration, a pulse that seemed to resonate with the rhythm of the planet itself. But soon the tremors intensified, sending rocks skittering across the ground and rattling equipment. Darrow signaled for his team to stay alert, his voice steady even as he assessed the mounting tension around them. From the dense foliage that lined the eastern edge of their position, figures began to emerge. These were the Feralics, tall armored beings known for their ferocity and unbreakable loyalty to their land. Stories of the Feralics' ruthless defense of Almaris had circulated among Peace Corps recruits, but now the humans were seeing them firsthand, their eyes gleaming with a cold, predatory intelligence. Captain Darrow took a deep breath, his grip steady as he addressed his team. He could feel the weight of their mission pressing down on him, but he refused to falter. "We're holding this position," he said, his voice firm. "They expect us to retreat, but that's not why we're here. We hold the line no matter what." The human soldiers exchanged resolute glances, adjusting their stances as they prepared for the inevitable clash. As the Feralics advanced, weapons drawn, the humans stood firm, a line of defiance, in a place that demanded nothing but submission. Blaster fire erupted, cutting through the silence as the two forces collided. The Feralics moved with an agility that seemed to defy the heavy gravity of the planet, but the humans matched their every move, their unity, a force that could not be easily shattered. Captain Darrow fought alongside his soldiers, every action a testament to his leadership, his focus unbreakable. He could feel the strain on his body, the pull of Almaris's gravity weighing him down. Yet he pressed on, his determination unwavering. His team followed his lead, meeting each Feralic strike with a resilience that bordered on defiance. As the skirmish continued, the Feralics began to slow their momentum, dampened by the humans' relentless stand. The humans refused to break their formation, every member moving with precision and purpose. By the time the last Feralic withdrew back into the shadows, the humans remained victorious, having defied an enemy that most would have fled from. Captain Darrow looked over his team, a faint smile of pride crossing his face. "We did what they thought impossible," he said quietly, "and we're just getting started." The Feralics' initial attack on the human outpost had been a test, a probing maneuver meant to assess the strength and resolve of the new arrivals on Almaris. But as dawn broke over the rugged landscape, casting long shadows across the forested mountains, it became clear that the Feralics were not finished. Throughout the morning, scouts spotted the tall, armored figures of the Feralics lurking at the edge of the forest, watching the human base with an intensity that suggested more than mere curiosity. Captain Darrow surveyed the perimeter from the outpost's command center, his gaze steady as he assessed the situation. His team had held their ground the previous night, proving that they were willing to stand against Almaris's native defenders. But he knew that the Feralics would not let this affront go unanswered. They were a proud, territorial species with a reputation for relentless vengeance against those who encroached upon their land. Darrow's team had staked a claim, and now they would have to defend it against an enemy that would stop at nothing to reclaim its territory. As the day wore on, the tension in the camp grew palpable. Soldiers moved quietly, their movements precise and focused, each one fully aware of the danger that lurked just beyond the trees. They checked their weapons, reinforced their defenses, and exchanged tense glances, each one bracing for the inevitable confrontation that lay ahead. The air was thick with anticipation, a charged silence that seemed to press down on them with the weight of the Feralics' looming presence. Darrow gathered his team for a briefing, his voice calm but filled with an unmistakable sense of urgency. "We held them off last night," he began, his gaze moving over each of his soldiers. "But they're not going to back down. The Feralics see this as a challenge, and they won't stop until they've pushed us off this ground. We need to be ready for anything." Liam, one of the more seasoned members of the team, nodded, his expression resolute. "We're with you, Captain. We didn't come all this way to turn tail at the first sign of trouble." Darrow nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I know, and that's why we're going to hold our ground. But remember, we're not just defending this outpost. We're showing the galaxy what humanity is capable of." The team exchanged determined glances, a renewed sense of purpose settling over them. They understood that this wasn't just a battle for survival, it was a test of their resilience, a chance to prove that Earth's soldiers could stand firm even against the fiercest of adversaries. They adjusted their positions, reinforcing the barricades, setting up watchtowers, and preparing for the onslaught that they knew would come. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting an eerie light over the landscape, the ground began to vibrate once more. This time, the tremors were stronger, a rhythmic pulsing that seemed to resonate with an ancient, primal energy. The Feralics were coming. From the shadows of the forest, they emerged in formation, their armor gleaming in the fading light, their eyes blazing with an intensity that sent a chill through the human soldiers' veins. They moved as one, a silent, unstoppable force that advanced with a deliberate purpose, their every step a reminder that they were the rightful defenders of this land. Darrow took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on the advancing figures. "Hold your positions," he commanded, his voice steady. "We're not retreating." The Feralics moved closer, their expressions cold and unyielding. They raised their weapons, the blades gleaming with a metallic sheen, their movements synchronized in a way that spoke of years of disciplined training. They were an ancient race, one that had defended Almaris for generations, and they would not be easily swayed. The first clash came as the Feralics reached the perimeter, their blades flashing as they met the human soldiers' defenses. The humans held their ground, their movements precise and calculated, each one covering the other as they repelled the attackers. Blaster fire lit up the battlefield, casting brief flashes of light across the combatants, illuminating the fierce expressions of the soldiers as they fought with everything they had. The Feralics pressed harder, their attacks relentless, their movements fluid and powerful. But the humans stood firm, their formation unbroken, their resolve unwavering. They fought as a unit, each one drawing strength from the others, their loyalty to one another a force that transcended the physical limitations of their bodies. Darrow moved through the ranks, his every action a testament to his leadership, his presence a steadying force that kept his team focused and determined. He fought with a fierce intensity, his blade flashing as he met the Feralics' attacks head-on, his movements calculated and precise. He could feel the weight of the battle pressing down on him, the strain of holding their ground against an enemy that seemed almost unstoppable. But he refused to give in, his resolve as unyielding as the mountains that loomed around them. As the battle raged on, the Feralics began to falter, their initial surge losing momentum as they encountered resistance unlike anything they had anticipated. They had expected the humans to retreat, to crumble under the weight of their assault, but instead, they found themselves facing a force that met their every move with unyielding determination, a force that refused to back down. The humans, though weary and bloodied, held their ground, their faces etched with exhaustion but their eyes shining with a fierce pride. They had come to Almaris as newcomers, outsiders on a world that was hostile to their presence. But they had proven that they were more than just interlopers. They were warriors, defenders of a new frontier, a force that would not be easily swayed. As the Feralics began to retreat, their figures melting back into the shadows of the forest, the humans watched them go, their expressions a mixture of relief and pride. They had held their ground, had faced an enemy that most would have fled from, and they had emerged victorious. Their actions would not go unnoticed. The galaxy was watching, and humanity had just made a statement. In the aftermath, as the soldiers regrouped and tended to their wounds, Darrow gathered his team for a final debrief. His voice was steady, his gaze filled with a quiet pride. "We did what they thought was impossible," he said, his tone filled with a gravity that went beyond the battle they had just fought. "We stood our ground, We proved that we belong here. And we've shown the galaxy that Earth's soldiers are not to be underestimated." His team nodded, their faces a mix of exhaustion and pride. They had come to Almaris as untested recruits, but they would leave as legends, as the defenders who had held the line against an ancient force. Their story would be told across star systems, a testament to humanity's resolve, a reminder that Earth's soldiers were a force to be reckoned with. As the sun rose over Almaris, casting a golden light across the rugged terrain, the human soldiers stood together, their gaze fixed on the horizon. They had proven their worth, had shown the galaxy that they would not be easily swayed, and as they prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead, they knew that they would carry the spirit of Earth with them, a spirit that refused to yield, no matter the odds. Word of the humans' defiance on Almaris spread quickly, reaching distant star systems and drawing the attention of the Galactic Council. Aliens who had once considered humanity a minor force now debated the significance of Earth's soldiers' actions, their resilience stirring curiosity and respect across the galaxy. Broadcasts of the skirmish were shared on interstellar networks, showing clips of the humans holding their ground, their faces etched with determination as they withstood the relentless Feralic onslaught. The footage was replayed, dissected, and discussed, each frame analyzed for insight into what drove humanity's unwavering stand against an enemy that most would have fled. The Feralics, incensed by their failed attempt to reclaim their territory, prepared for an all-out assault. Their leaders, powerful figures with a deep connection to Almaris, saw the humans' presence as an affront, an invasion that could not be tolerated. They began to amass their forces, rallying every available fighter to expel the humans from their land once and for all. Scouts reported back to Captain Darrow, describing the Feralics' preparations, their numbers growing with each passing hour. It was clear that the next attack would be larger, more brutal, a test of the humans' very survival. Inside the outpost, Darrow and his team made their final preparations. The atmosphere was tense, a charged silence hanging in the air as each soldier checked their weapons, fortified their defenses, and prepared themselves mentally for the battle that lay ahead. They knew the odds were against them, knew that the Feralics would not hold back, but they also knew that retreat was not an option. They had been sent to establish a presence, to show the galaxy that Earth's soldiers were capable of more than anyone had expected, and they intended to do just that. Darrow addressed his team, his voice calm and steady, his gaze unwavering. "This is it," he said, his tone filled with a quiet strength. "They're coming in full force, and they won't stop until they've pushed us off this land. But we've faced worse odds. We've survived what others thought was impossible. And today, we're going to do it again." His words resonated with his team, each soldier straightening, their faces set with determination. They were tired, bruised, and weary from the previous battles, but their spirits remained unbroken. They had come to Almaris to prove themselves, to show the galaxy that humanity was not a species to be underestimated, and now, standing on the precipice of what could be their final stand, they felt a sense of purpose that transcended the mission itself. The ground trembled as the Feralics began their approach, a low, rhythmic vibration that echoed through the valley, a prelude to the coming storm. From the ridge above, the humans could see the Feralics advancing, their armor gleaming in the sunlight, their numbers vast and seemingly endless. The sight was both awe-inspiring and terrifying, a reminder of the formidable force that had guarded Almaris for generations. Darrow raised his weapon, his eyes fixed on the approaching figures. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, the knowledge that their survival depended on their ability to hold this line, to stand firm against an enemy that knew no fear. "Hold your positions," he commanded, his voice carrying over the din of the advancing army. "We don't give an inch." The Feralics charged, their battle cries echoing through the valley as they descended upon the human outpost, with a fury that seemed almost primal. The humans opened fire, their weapons blazing as they met the onslaught with unyielding force. Blaster fire filled the air, casting brief flashes of light across the battlefield as the two forces clashed. The humans held their ground, their movements precise and coordinated, each soldier covering the next. Their unity a force that defied the overwhelming numbers before them. The Feralics fought with a ferocity born of desperation, their attacks relentless, their movements swift and calculated. They pressed closer, pushing the humans to the brink, each wave of attackers more intense than the last. But the humans refused to yield, their every action a testament to their resolve, their unbreakable spirit. As the battle raged on, Darrow felt a shift in the air, a sense that something was changing. The Feralics, despite their superior numbers and advanced weaponry, began to waver. They had expected the humans to retreat, to falter under the weight of their assault. But instead, they found themselves facing a force that met their every move with a resilience that bordered on the supernatural. In the midst of the chaos, Darrow caught sight of a Feralic leader, a towering figure clad in ornate armor, his eyes burning with a fierce determination. The leader raised his blade, his gaze fixed on Darrow, and for a brief moment, their eyes met, a silent acknowledgement of the respect that had grown between them, a recognition of the strength and resolve that both sides possessed. The Feralic leader hesitated, his blade poised, his gaze flickering as he took in the sight of the humans, their faces etched with exhaustion but filled with a fierce pride. He could see that they were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for something more, a purpose that went beyond the battle itself. And in that moment, he understood that the humans were not enemies to be vanquished, but warriors to be respected. The leader lowered his blade, his gaze shifting to the soldiers behind him. He raised his hand, a signal for retreat, a gesture that spoke of a respect that went beyond words. The Feralics pulled back, their movements slow and deliberate, their eyes fixed on the humans as they retreated, a silent acknowledgement of the strength they had witnessed. As the last of the Feralics disappeared into the forest, the humans lowered their weapons, their expressions a mixture of relief and disbelief. They had done it. They had held the line, had faced an enemy that most would have fled from, and they had emerged victorious. Their actions would not go unnoticed. The galaxy had watched, and humanity had just made a statement. Darrow looked at his team, his gaze filled with pride. "We did it," he said,